Mondays, we talk about mental health, and we're going to talk about something called survivor's guilt today. It is something that could be an issue for people after that attack in Boulder. It's also likely an issue for someone who may have lost someone else during the pandemic. My new psychologist, Dr. Wachtel, is with us today. And first, I think maybe if you could bring people up to speed on what survivor's guilt is. I think oftentimes you see people escape a situation and quickly think they must be happy that they got out, but there is something that comes with that.
There is. So that there is usually a lot of happiness and relief that comes with it. But if you think of, when you think something bad happens to you and you think, why me? Survivor's guilt is kind of like the opposite of that. It's more like why not me? Why didn't it happen to me? Why did it happen to somebody else? And it can really hit a person hard. You know, these big existential questions about life and death and what it means for me to be lucky when so many other people around me were not lucky.
You know, we think of the difficult situation, those who survived the King Soopers shooting in Boulder, but can people have survivor's guilt even if they weren't there that day?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm sure everybody has heard stories at this point in the Denver, Boulder area of, the people who were at the King Soopers, the few hours before, or they left 10 minutes before, or they showed up right after it happened and weren't allowed to get inside, or just hearing about friends or family members who were in there. That can all trigger survivor's guilt as well.
Coming to grips with mortality is obviously a very difficult part of the human condition. How do you know if what you're experiencing is something like survivor's guilt?
Yeah, this is one of those things that feels pretty obvious. If you're having those feelings of shame or guilt, I should have done something differently. That it should have been me. Why did it happen to them and not to me? Those are all clues that you're feeling guilty because you'd survived something so horrible and you know other people didn't.
Well, it seems you'd understand if someone felt that way. Obviously, the idea, if you're feeling that way, what can you do about it? You certainly would think about seeking help, but what would you recommend to someone who might be going through that?
Yeah, so here's the good news. For most people who are experiencing survivor's guilt, it just kind of goes away on its own. So that's nice to know. There are things that you can do proactively, though. Talking to other people about it really helps. Don't be embarrassed about it. Don't be ashamed that you're feeling survivor's guilt. That tends to only make it worse. So if you talk to somebody else about it, it can be really helpful. If it's getting really extreme and it's turning into something like anxiety or depression where you can't think of anything else, or you can't get out of bed in the morning, or you're having trouble focusing at work or focusing with your family, then you probably need to seek some professional help.
What about survivor guilt in its relation to the pandemic? It's obviously been more than a year now, a very taxing year on many people. Is it becoming more common?
That's a good question, and that there isn't a lot of good research out there that shows whether or not it has become more common. I think common sense would say, it probably is. We've probably all experienced that to some extent. Why haven't I gotten sick? Or if I've gotten sick, why did I survive and somebody else didn't? I have a feeling this is something that a lot of people can relate to, which is one of those reasons why you shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed of it.
And that's another idea that we'll be managing the pandemic, post-pandemic as well, maybe from a psychological standpoint.
Absolutely. That's going to be, there are going to be so many psychological ramifications post-pandemic, but this will definitely be one of them. Coming to grips with why we survived and why other people didn't.
Well, hopefully people can recognize it if they are seeing someone with it, or if they feel it themselves, and can start the process of getting through it. Dr. Max, it's always good to visit with you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.